Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are so glad that you can join us today. We're brought to you by ProgressiveChristianity.org, an incredible organization with lots of progressive Christian resources. Check them out. Also follow them and us on social media. You won't want to miss any of that. Today we're talking about the Mandalorian, and the thing you should know, we will have some spoilers. I'm here today, as always, with my good buddy Mark Sandlin. How you doing today, Mark?
Doing great, Caleb. I hope that you are.
I am doing great, and I am ready to shift radically from what we did last week, talking about Star Trek, to talking about Star Wars.
I tell you what, it's a big turn right there.
It's a big turn, you know, and we're going to try something really different. We're going to talk about something that's sci-fi or fantasy related. So I know that's a big departure for us. I know, right? Okay, hey, but before we talk about anything, we got to get our drinks on. So what are you drinking today, man?
Well, one of the more popular online cocktails for the Mandalorian is called the Baby Yoda. So I've switched it up. I've used their style, but I'm calling mine a Grogu because that's his real name, people. Yeah, it's Grogu. Grogu. And the one online is a vodka drink. So, but in honor of Pedro Pascal, who's not really Mexican, but has a Hispanic heritage, I went with tequila, and so I'm doing a sort of a play on a margarita. It's tequila. I muddled a kiwi in the bottom first because the kiwi reminds me a little of Grogu. You know, he's green, but he's a little furry on the outside. So I muddled the kiwi. I used some melon liqueur, some tequila, a little sour mix. And then I trimmed it out complete with ears and eyes that I used some blackberries to make the eyes and made myself a little Grogu. So I'm calling mine a Grogu. How about you? What direction do you go in? This is a fun one to play with, right?
It is a fun one. And so for the first time, we have taken our inspiration from the same drink. Okay, so
really,
we've been doing this for over a year, Mark, and we've never had the same drink.
We are right at a year, like to the day.
Today, this day,
our first show was this day last year.
No way. Okay, hey, happy anniversary, Mark.
Happy anniversary to us, right?
Let's drink.
Okay, over a year, we haven't repeated a like inspiration. So I'm curious, like, how did it inspire you?
Well, okay, yeah. So this is for our anniversary. We've chosen the same drinks.
This is lovely. We're
different.
Doing like this. We're gonna go Star Trek again. There's a mind meld kind of thing going on. It seems. All right.
Yes.
Same but different. How so?
Same but different. Okay. So mine is a martini, but it's a fruity martini. So I've made something with coconut flavors and lime flavors. So, and it's a kind of a coconut martini. So I've got Grogu too.
You did Grogu as well.
Yeah. So it's got blueberries and little apple slices. It's very fruity. So, hey, cheers to your Grogu.
Cheers to you, sir. Here's to your Grogu. Oh, that is delicious.
As is mine, and we both took a sip without spilling it everywhere, and that's
on our keyboard.
Yeah,
that is something to celebrate, sir. That is something to celebrate.
Let's take another drink and let's come back and get into it.
Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. You are joining us for our Geek Out section, and we're just doing season 3 of Mandalorian, episodes 1 and 2. But for those of you who maybe aren't going to watch the show but want to enjoy listening to the discussion, I'm going to try to, as much as possible, quickly give you an overview of both episodes. So in season 3, we of course rejoin the journey with Din Djarin and Grogu, popularly known, as I pointed out, as Baby Yoda. And in episode 1, Din saves a group of Mandalorians from a giant dinosaur alligator turtle thing who is basically interrupting an induction ceremony. And then he begins to prepare for a trip to the mines of Mandalore, which we once thought were completely destroyed. And he's doing this in order to restore his rights as a Mandalorian after breaking a key law, removing his helmet, so that he did it so that he could connect with Grogu, or reconnect with Grogu after his to reconnect with them. And so then in episode 2, Din and Grogu are actually on their journey to the mines, and it basically goes terribly wrong, and Grogu has to go get help from Bo-Katan, who was once the ruler of the Mandalorians, in order to rescue Din. But the interesting thing is, in the process of the rescue, they learned that an extinct creature that's central to the Mandalorian history actually isn't extinct. And so we had 2 pretty action-packed and interesting episodes, I thought. I mean, what did you think about the 2? Yeah?
Yeah, they were super action-packed, and especially the second one. I mean, they did a lot to drive the story along, but yeah, there was a lot of time with no dialogue, too, where we're seeing them go through. And so that's, I think, one of the things that's been very interesting about the Mandalorian. You know, they call it like a Wild West kind of space opera show, and that's one of the
first 2
things
seasons certainly were. We had like Wild West and a little like samurai show kind of stuff going. Particularly the first 2 seasons, we completely had that. I mean, really.
And so I think that's one of the things that's compelling about it, right? Is that it's kind of got that feeling, but it's in space, and you're exploring the Star Wars universe in a way that we really haven't before. I think that's one of the things that's really appealing. And so, yeah, this was fun, a fun episode, and we got to see the Mandalorian get captured, and Din get captured, and
wasn't that the coolest creature that captures him? Like, I hope it's not the end of this creature. One, I want to know what the creature inside the shell really is, but the whole contraption that it had put together and created this stalker spider-like mechanical, and then after they think they kill it, it kind of peels off in its own little. I don't know what would you call it? Like a little, I don't know. I don't know what that thing is. Watching it walk away in that little capsule rather than the giant spider-like kind of crazy. It was just so cool. It was so Star Wars. Like, that's the stuff that made us fall in love with Star Wars, to start with all this inventive, creative, new ways of approaching characters. And that one for me was the moment where I felt like, they're recapturing this mystery and intrigue. Like, I was instantly engaged with that character and very curious. I hope we find out more about it.
I hope so too. I mean, all we found out about the other characters that were kind of in the mines is that they used to live behind the Mandalorian cities, but we didn't really find out a lot about them. But you're right. We are getting some new character development, and we're not just exploring the same species that we've seen over and over again. That is one of the things that makes it fun. And it's fun to get to learn more about. That's been one of the things that's been fun. The whole series has been learning more about like Mandalorian mythology and all, but I felt like we have really started to dive into that this season. I know we're going to talk more about that in the next segment, but it's really kind of been fun to get to learn more about the Mandalorians and what the Mandalorian myths were and what
it feels
them.
like.
And that's been a lot
it feels
of fun.
like we're shifting gears from the first 2 seasons. The first 2 seasons were great, like we said. There's a lot of gunfighter kind of feel to it. And there were, like, even in the first episode when he's preparing to go to the mines, we do see him like in the standoff with the pirates, and you get a lot of old West kind of posturing and stuff. That was fun.
Yeah.
really does feel like we're shifting into, I'm going to make a little pun here, into the Mando lore. It feels like we're going it feels like we're going into the lore of all of the background, and that we're investigating and we're seeing these sort of spiritual, theological overtones of who they are and why they are and all of that. And that's been intriguing, if not a little bit hard to follow, because it is not an uncomplicated history of the Mandalorians. I mean, it's pretty dense. Did you feel like they presented it in a way that you were able to follow along relatively well and start? Because I think they're just trying to peel back layers. They're not wanting to give it to us all at once. Like, we're getting a little bit
I think that's right.
A little bit there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're 100% right, because we're learning a little bit at a time, and we get the notion that there's a much larger mythology, and it is slowly revealed. And I think that's okay, because if you find out everything about the Mandalorians in this one fell swoop, I think you're right. It would be way too much to digest. But learning a little bit keeps you invested, keeps you intrigued, and certainly it has been for me. This has been one of the most fun series to watch in a really long time. It's been so engaging, and it's been fun both to learn about the Mandalorians, because we hadn't gotten a lot of exploration before the series, but also the connection between Grogu and Din has been fun to explore and to see blossom and develop over the course of the season.
And I'm curious about that. I'm talking about Grogu and Din, because we have learned since season 3 came out with some interviews that, and they hinted at it, like the planet they go back to isn't kind of run down anymore. It's well developed, and the overhead shot as they're flying in, there's greenery that's growing. It wasn't there before. So it's clear, and the pirates want to go into what's now a school because it used to be a bar. Well, that takes a lot of time to happen. And so we've seen a lot of time has passed. I am curious. What do you think of, because Grogu himself has at this point has been a member of the Jedi Academy. He's trained, we've now learned, for 2 years with Luke Skywalker. Why do you think, and is it a good idea? I guess it's a two-part question. Why do you think they're doing it? And is it a good idea that they're keeping Grogu sort of childlike? Even though he's been through that kind of training, even though he's had a lot of age behind him. Why are they doing it? And is it a good idea? Is it overplayed, or is this something we're going to see for a while? I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they call him a child. They got to keep him childish. I think no.
At what point is that just playing into being able to sell more?
More merchandise?
More merchandise, because he's so damn cute, and the adults and the kids are going to want one,
He is cute. I think, in all fairness, I think we've seen some development of his talents and abilities and characterization, especially already this season. I mean, the fact that
definitely have.
But so I mean, being able to navigate back and to go get help from Bo-Katan, I think is some character development from the extreme childlike sense that we got especially in the first season. But I do think it's time to push him forward a little bit. I get that the character ages slowly, but one of the things you need is character development. And I think we need to continue. It turns out that's like an essential plot device that you need for a series to remain interesting and engaging. And so I think that we need to start seeing that with him. I'm hopeful that over the course of the season, since we've already started to see some of this happen, that we'll see it further this season. But I would like to see a little bit more grown up Baby Yoda, less Baby Yoda. I'd like to see Grogu kind of grow up a little bit. Where do you land on that? What do you think, Mark?
I think that it is overplayed, honestly. I still find it cute, but within the story, I feel like it doesn't fit. It does. For instance, when he's sitting in the swivel chair and he's using the Force to spin himself around every time, and then he gets the space M&Ms to come to him so he can have his little snack.
Space M&Ms, I love that. Yeah,
I found that adorable, completely adorable. But I also realized it was pulling me out of what was going on. Because there was a part of me that immediately thought, well, when's he going to stop doing that stuff? Like, it feels overplayed. It feels a little too marketable. And it feels like he has been through enough that he would be more in that late elementary school, early middle school kind of mindset of where he has fun and he's a little bit combative with Den a little bit. I feel like we need more of that now, where he is in that growth stage, because he has learned with Luke for 2 years. He has had Den treating him like a child and saying, if you're going to be a Mandalorian, you have to learn to navigate, because a Mandalorian knows how to read maps. That way, if you know where you are, you'll never be lost. Those kind of things. I feel like saying that to a baby makes no sense. You know what I'm saying? It feels like we're getting two different stories here. He's a baby, he's a child, isn't he cute and he adorable? Oh, you need to learn how to read a map. Oh, by the way, if you don't go get if you don't go and get Bo-Katan, I'm probably going to die. Like, how you expect that out of a baby, man? I mean, come on.
Is that too much? Is that really too much to expect from a baby? So, I think you're right. Do you think we're going to see some progress in that over the course of the season? Do you think like the season's off to a
think we're going to see
start?
some. I don't think we're going to see nearly as much as the character deserves. Again, and this is the downside of Star Wars. Ever since the first movie became successful, I don't think anything in the first movie was made thinking about marketing. It was just made because it was this beautiful, fun, incredible space cowboy, massive story. Ever since then, though, we do have things that are intentionally marketable. Baby Grogu is probably one of the most marketable things we've seen in a very, very long time in the Star Wars universe. Yeah,
even outside, it's even when you compare it to outside things. I mean, we were at Build-A-Bear the other day, and you could buy for your bear little Grogu ears.
Grogu cap.
You could buy it for like your animals. You know, it's a very marketable thing. There's a lot of money to be made.
That's the problem. There's a lot of money to be made, so I think we're still going to see cute, adorable Grogu. Which, let's face it, we're going to call them Yodas because we don't know what race they really are. We only know of 3 Yodas right now. And 2 of them aren't cute and adorable. They're serious as crap. Like they're sages, they're contemplative. They're like, and this one somehow though is very cute and adorable up until he's got to be in the timeline. He's got to be 60-ish at this point, which is
right, because he starts out at 50, right?
Yeah. And from what we've heard, he's at least had 4 to 10 years since then. They lived to their 900-ish. That's, I think Yoda died at 900. So sure, he's young in terms of that span, but he's also playing against like what seems to be that whatever his race is. I hope that they let go of it faster than I think they're going to. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm hopeful that we'll see some development. I think you're right about the marketing piece, and probably we won't see it happen all over the course of this season. But maybe if we see some development this season and we see him kind of jump forward a little bit in the next season, maybe we'll get there, Mark. But I'm with you. I think you're right on.
Well, I would honestly, I would love to just at this point do an episode of the Moonshine Jesus Show for every episode of the Mandalorian. But
yeah, because we barely got into it. We scratched the surface.
There's so much that we could be talking about. We'll talk a little bit more, I have no doubt, in the next segment, because this new season definitely lends itself to particularly theological perspectives, but also some political stuff. So let's take the drop and come back on the other side and dig in a little more.
Cool. Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're moving into our Theopolitico segment where we are going to talk about theology and politics of the Mandalorian and looking at the first 2 episodes of season 3. So there is a ton to talk about, which is kind of surprising because we're not very deep into the season, but you said there is a lot of Mando lore here for us to explore. And one of the things
I like the to explore. You like well played. I like that.
Okay, so hey, look, one of the prominent themes here has been a parallel with what I would call Christian baptism, right? We see Mandalorians going through this ritual where they're in the water reciting a creed, getting water poured over them, and in order to experience redemption, Din has to go to the mines where there is this living water where he is supposed to bathe in it. So I have a question for you, Mark. I've heard a lot that baptism is about redemption, and that is what Din is seeking. I want to know, what is the purpose of baptism in the Christian tradition, Mark? Is it redemption? Or if it's not, what is it?
In the Protestant tradition, it is a sign and a symbol of God's grace. And secondarily, it is a movement from into the body of Christ. There's lots of pieces all around that. You can add to it. You can, and different folks are going to see it in different ways. But at its core, it is those two things. It's primarily a sign and a symbol that points to God's grace, and then secondarily, and very close, it's also a movement from one point of life to a new point of life where you're a part of the body of Christ. At least that's my traditional training. How would you augment that?
Well, do you think it's about redemption at all? Is redemption a part of that?
I think at times it can be, but the redemption really comes in terms of traditional theology. The redemption comes through the grace of God. We can't redeem ourselves. No one else can redeem us. Not the minister, not anyone. It is the grace of God through which we can be redeemed. So there is that thing, but I don't think that, at least in its origins, that is central to the theology of baptism. It has certainly become a part of it, particularly in certain parts of Christianity. And I don't know that it's a bad thing. Outside of the fact that you then have to deal with redemption theology and what are we being redeemed from, and what does that say about a God that creates beings that need to be redeemed? I mean, there's lots of complications that come there, but for me, you have to kind of, and I guess I'm being very Din here. Like he's very much about an originalist, and I think we're learning that he's going to. Feels like this is the year where he realizes that his kind of being an originalist, being a hardcore sort of fundamentalist, and this is different. Originalist in Christianity and fundamentalist in Christianity are very different things, but I think in Mandalorian culture, we're getting set up that they're about the same thing. I think we're beginning to see the beginning cracks of him realizing that maybe Bo-Katan and her movement, which was much more about peace than his movement was, and was much more about opening up the rules a little bit so that more can participate in sort of the kinship of Mandalorianism. I think we're going to see a movement of him learning that. But when it comes to baptism, I feel like Christian baptism we need to kind of, when we talk about the theology behind it, we need to stick to origins, be more originist in terms of this is about pointing to the sign and the symbol of God's grace. And it is also about, let's call it membership, about belonging to the kinship of God.
So I think that's fascinating because we do get in the New Testament with the explanation that John is baptizing for the forgiveness of sins, redemption for the forgiveness of sins. So I come from, I kind of straddle two traditions here. I'm a part of both the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, which practices believers' baptism, and the United Church of Christ, which practices infant baptism. And so in the disciples, the understanding is that for most disciple, you can't really say anything for sure in either one of these traditions. Anyone who's been a part of either one of these know that you can't really speak in anything more than just in broad strokes, because people have freedom of belief. But I think in disciples tradition, it tends to be a ritual marker of a person's decision to follow the teachings of Jesus. And so it's not necessary. There's nothing magical happening in the waters or anything like that. It's a person's decision to follow the teachings of Jesus, and it's a ritual marker of that. I think redemption can be a part of that if we're talking about believing that Jesus's teachings are a way to focus our life on serving others and making this world a better place. I think there's some redemption in that if that's not what we have been doing in our lives previously to that. I don't think it's something magical that happens in the water, but I think that it's something that happens through our behavior, the way that we.
And I think that that's one of the interesting things about the show and what they're doing and the way they're playing with it, because it is the living waters. But Bo-Katan all but says what you just said. We once thought that there was something magical about the waters, but I'm here to tell you there's nothing magical about these waters. This is just a place. And for me, that's those little clues that they're starting to say. It feels like that we're getting this lesson in fundamentalism and maybe some of the expectations of just buying into it and not needing to not think it through. And we're starting to see Den hearing enough information where he's starting to learn that these things that he just believed because he believed them, maybe he needs to rethink them a little bit. And I like that they're doing that. We particularly need that in the U.S. in terms of the way that the Christian religion is now. To have some pop culture help.
There is no fundamentalism. Where are you getting that?
You really shouldn't listen to me. I'm an apostate. It's very clear I'm an apostate. You shouldn't be listening to anything I have to say. But I love that they seem to be cracking that, like going there a little bit, and that to put that in pop culture and kind of plant it in society's, understanding, and to allow us to see it outside of Christianity in a way that some folks might be able to hear it better. I'm hopeful that is exactly what's happening. Do you think?
I'm hopeful too. I'm hopeful too, but I mean, I think the fact that we see this creature that was thought to be mythological and they thought it was just a legend, and then we see that it wasn't, I'm hoping isn't telling us that there's maybe more to that than they thought, because that could lean into the other side there.
As I understand it, for Mandalorians, it has become a thought that it was mythical, but historically they knew it wasn't. Like when they arrived at the planet, I can't remember what it's called. It's almost called a mythorian. I can't remember what the beast is called, but it's got myth in the beginning of the name. But it was actually there when they populated the planet, and at first they proved how great of warriors they were, because they're a war society. At least that's how they're founded, and Bo-Katan's trying to get them away from that. But at first they were killing them to prove what great warriors are, and then they ultimately started trying to tame them and ride them. So in history, they know they're real, but they'd been gone for so long that they started thinking them.
Of course, that's what like fundamentalists say that progressive Christians do, right? They say that actually this all actually happened, but it's been so long since any of this happened that that you think it can't happen. And it's just mythological. So I hope that maybe we don't lean too much into that, or I think it detracts some from leaning away from mythology. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to lean too hard into it. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to just pretty much pop up, and we're going to. I really feel like Den is on a path of recognizing that his attraction to fundamentalism is actually not serving him well at all. If anything, it's hurting him, and it might come down to the fact that Grogu isn't a part of the Mandalore system, and his way of seeing Mandalorianism shouldn't allow Grogu to be part of it, because you have to have roots in the system. And
Wait. Are you saying that relationships with other people who are different from you, who hold different perspectives, are you saying that those kinds of things can broaden your mind and change your perspective? You wouldn't be
you're
saying
that.
would
Don't
you?
get me in trouble. Don't get me. You're the one saying that.
Does that mean I'm an apostate too? Is that what that means?
Come to the dark side, Caleb. Come to the dark side.
I bet there hasn't been a week that either one of us have been in ministry that we haven't been called an apostate or that we're going to hell.
I suspect you're exactly right.
Speaking about being an apostate and going to hell,
yes.
I have another question that has to do with the mythology here and has to do with bathing in the living waters, and it has to do with creedal statements. Okay, so he
you're gonna get me
is saying.
Here.
I know I am. so Den has to recite a creed as he's going into the water, and I'd love to explore that more. But
it's the same creed. It's the same creed that the child was repeating when he was going to receive his helmet for the first time when the alligator turtle monster thing happened.
Yes, and so as he's having a conversation with Bo-Katan about like the importance of creeds, he says, without the creed, what are we? What do we stand for? And here's my question, Mark. Do Christians need creeds? And if we don't, then without the creed, what are we? And what do we stand for?
Dang. Really set me up, didn't you? I will give the answer to the first question first. Do we Christians need creeds? I'm going to give you two words. Hell no.
Okay, yes.
Hell no. And there's meaning to hell no, is that in our creeds we confess that there is a hell, and there is no hell. Biblically, we know that. And that points to the dangers of creeds, that we're expected to just buy into what's being said based on what someone thought hundreds, sometimes thousands of years ago, to do it mindlessly and thoughtlessly, and to define who's in and out based on those. It is wonderful to remember history. It is important to know where we came from. It's essential that we know the path that led us to where we are. And there is value in what's behind the creeds, for sure, for certain. But the fact that we find it necessary to repeat them as we gather all the time and do it as if it's fact. It's one thing to do it as let us remember who we once were and from whence we came or something like that. I'm okay with that. It can be healthy if it's handled in the right way, but doing it as if these are the facts, this is what you must believe, and if you don't, you might not be accepted by these people who say they love you. It's an issue for me. I don't know if you could tell.
I couldn't. And I'm shocked, Mark. I thought you were going to just say, I love Creed.
They're the best.
Nothing in my field of experience with you made me think that you were going to say, yeah, Creed's on the way, man. So where
do you fall on that?
I come from a non-creedal tradition. Okay. I didn't even know there were creeds until I went to college. I didn't grow up saying creeds. Yeah. So we don't have them in our tradition. And so the thought was that creeds divide people. And so you have people agree on the basis, which is following Jesus. And if you can agree on that basic thing, then it unites people. I don't know that that's worked as well as they thought it would. There's been a lot of divisive things, but yeah, I think creeds are extremely problematic, and I can't say them because there's almost nothing in there I agree with, because creeds are almost never about Jesus's actual life. Right? Absolutely. Like we say what we confess theologically about Jesus, but nothing about his life, which was the only thing that we actually know something about. So I think creeds are extremely problematic, especially if we think that Jesus's life and teachings are the basis of how we're supposed to live our lives. And if we aren't saying anything about that, problematic. I want to talk about like a ton more, Mark. I've got so many things.
Even worse than that, though, just a quick little follow-up is those creeds, particularly in Catholicism and Protestantism, it's also heavily influenced by politics, which It's just
No.
makes it all the worse.
No.
I know. You forget I'm an apostate, man. I have to say these things.
I really want to dig into the politics of it, but you know what? If we do, we're not going to be able to get to our last segment, and we've got to because it's the Make Me Look Stupid segment. And you know, I really want you to try to make me look stupid today. So
I suspect it's going to go the other way, but okay.
Let's take a quick break. Let's have some more Grogu drink and come back and try to make each other look stupid.
Hello, welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. So we're in our Make Me Look Stupid segment. I had 3 different questions this time just because I don't trust Caleb anymore to not steal my questions.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you what 2 of my questions were before I ask you my actual question. I was thinking I was thinking that I was going to ask you what actually is the way. This is the way. Like, what is that? And what are they doing there? I'm not going to ask you that question. And then I thought maybe I'll just ask him, what does it mean to be a Mandalorian? Because we're getting all these different confusing questions. Like, does it mean that you have roots back to Mandalorian? Does it mean, like, does it mean that you follow the way? Does it mean that you wear the best car armor? What does it mean? I'm not even going to ask you that one.
Oh, those are both good.
They're good questions. I'm going to go to a different direction.
Okay.
I'm going to make a call back to prior seasons here.
Ooh, okay. Let's test my memory.
All right. And something that we will probably be almost certainly are going to still be part of the reason that Grogu is with Din is because Moff Gideon wants him. Moff Gideon wants his blood. Why does he want Grogu's blood?
Let's see. I think there's something special about this the Yoda race's blood that we are yet to determine. I think it's some kind of a special connection with the Force that the blood of this species has that can be utilized to. Oh, okay. The dechlorians.
Because midichlorians are, we find out are what gives. They're minuscule, they're microscopic organisms that live in blood that are in all beings that give connection to the Force. And the more midichlorians you have, the more connected to the Force you are.
I love that. So I think that there's something special about their blood that allows people to leverage the Force for good or for ill, and that's why I think they want the.
And what do you think? I think that's core. I'm with you. I think that it does have to do with his blood. That maybe, like you said, the Yoda race, whatever it is, has a particular higher count of midichlorians than most folks. I suspect that we're going to find out that Grogu has an even higher count than the typical. And that's why he's so interesting because there's plenty of Force-sensitive creatures out there they could be going after. Right. But my question is, what's Moff going to do with it? Why does he want it? Like, what's he going to do with it?
He's going to use it for ill, man. He's going to leverage it and maybe to reestablish the Empire with him in charge.
Yes,
I think, and he's going to, and he is going to exert his power over the known universe with him.
I suspect you're right. I think if you look at Moff, even the way he dresses, he dresses in all black, sort of shades of Darth Vader. He had the what did they call the black saber for a while there, and it was a non-Force being holding the saber. I think he desperately wants to have connections to the Force. And I feel like in season 2, there was a very slight conversation where it was suggested that there was an experiment that happened using some of the blood, because they got a little bit from Grogu when they briefly had him. There was, I think they called it a fortnight. There was a fortnight where the experiment seemed to be working. And so I do think that he wants to be Darth Vader, like uber Darth Vader. Like he's trying to shape
Uber
himself.
Darth Vader. I like that. Yeah.
Trying to shape himself in his image. And he doesn't naturally have a high count of midichlorians. He's trying to figure out how to do it. And so he's after this one being that seems to have the highest count of midichlorians in the entire Star Wars universe. So I'm with you. I think it's what you were thinking. And I think that that's how he thinks it's going to work. Whether it ever will or not, I don't know.
Great. I love that. I just made that up, so I'm glad you agree.
I like it.
I love it. Okay.
It worked out well. All right. So stump me, man. Give me the hard question.
I don't know.
I can ask you that way I can ask you what the actual answer is.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to stump you, but it's something that I want to know your perspective on. And so I'm going to take this back to a theological question here.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about, but this is so dense, and I'm shocked at how dense 2 episodes can be theologically. But this really was. So crazy. One of the things that Bo-Katan says to Din is, "It's cute that you still believe in children's stories. There's nothing magical about the waters." That's what we were talking about when we were talking about baptism here. So, I think that a lot of people outside the Christian faith kind of see the Bible as children's stories. And I've even been told something similar to that. It's cute that you still read children's stories and talk about those every Sunday in church. Is the Bible children's stories? Is it make-believe? Is it myth? Like, how do we use those in a helpful way? And moreover, like those of us who are progressive Christians who maybe recognize that some of the stuff is myth, like how do we relate to the Bible in a helpful way without getting rid of it all? Or should we get rid of it all? What do you think, Mark?
No, we should not get rid of it all. There's great value. Like, all right, first of all, let's recognize there's 66 books there. They're all got different purposes. They're all different kinds. They all have
Wait,
overall.
No. God wrote them all, right? Didn't God write all of those?
Yes, through probably 180 different people. But that's fine. That's fine.
No, it was like descended down from heaven, right? God spoke it into...
Right.
Oh, wait.
Right.
That's not how that happened.
Maybe not. I don't know. If that makes you happy, I'm fine with you.
It does not make me happy.
As long as you're not hurting people with it, I'm fine with it. Whatever you need to believe.
Oh, you're kinder than me. We already knew that.
I really don't care. As long as you're not hurting people, like believe whatever you want. I don't care. No, I mean, the majority of the Bible is allegory based in history, but not history. So we have lots of stories where historical things were taken and added to and built up. But the point of doing it, which was a very common thing during many of the periods that over the long history that the Bible is written over, is done to teach lessons that are, somewhat rooted in the history so that it has some realness to it. There's great value in what our historical mothers and fathers were trying to tell us about their understanding of God and who they believe we are to be in the world. There is so much value in all of that it would be ridiculous to throw it out and get rid of it. And archaeology is helping us understand which parts might be rooted in real life and which parts might be a little more imaginative, like Genesis and those types of things. But we also have extra-canonical things that are written that help support it, and things that were written by some of the leading Greeks of the day that reference things that the Bible references to let us know that it actually is real, that there are some real historical facts, particularly more in the New Testament, where some of it comes much closer to actual history. There is great value in learning from it. Making the Bible God is the worst thing we could ever do. which unfortunately is what far too much of Christianity tries to do.
Like make it an idol that you worship, like
An
worship the
idol,
Bible.
right?
Wait,
Yeah, you think there might be a problem there, Caleb?
wait, are we not supposed to do that? I've heard that somewhere.
Wonder
I heard
where?
that.
I don't know.
Was it? Oh yeah, the Bible.
Oh yeah.
I agree. I don't think you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
I think recognizing that there are a variety of genres and that different parts of the Bible are striving to do different things
Different things.
is really important, and that's not being disrespectful for the Bible. That's being
It's the opposite.
very respectful, right? Because then we're taking it seriously and engaging with it in the manner that it was meant to be engaged with. So I think recognizing stories too that are etiologies, stories that are supposed to explain why the world is the way it is within an ancient context, is important to realize. And I think we can have a fundamental shift whenever we recognize that the Bible is a collection of people's experiences about how they understood God within their own context. And if we see it not as something that God gave humanity, that God like dictated for someone to write, but instead with people like you and me trying to figure out how it is that this great mystery is revealed in our lives and writing that down. I think if we can see that, then it's an extremely valuable text as we understand how God has been revealed or understood or seen in some way within the various contexts. So I don't think, by and large, the Bible is a very good children's story. A lot of it is not great children's reading. So
we try to make some of it into it. Like my favorite one is this Noah's Ark. Like if you really read the text, you should not be teaching that to kids. It is horrific.
I got mad and killed everybody except for Noah's family and a bunch of animals. So yeah, it's not great. You're right. The ones that we usually take as children's stories often are really, really bad children's stories.
You have to leave out big parts of the story to make it okay.
Big parts of them. So hey, we could go on and on. I'd love to talk about that, but we've got other things to do. So do our listeners, and we got to get ready for next week. Don't we, Mark?
That's right. I'm excited about next week, man. I am very excited. We are finally getting some new sci-fi fantasy releases and movies.
Finally.
It's about time. We've had a couple of weeks where we've just searched for what we want to talk about. This week we get Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
Yes.
Second Shazam movie. I think is going to be incredible. I actually understand that. Well, a lot of the DC stuff is going to be tossed aside as they reinvent it. Shazam, they are actually considering whether or not it might be able to continue. It's one of the rare ones that might be able to continue. So it might actually have some impact in the DC universe going forward. So I'm really excited about it.
Me too, because I think Shazam, if you're pointing to some of the DC movies that have actually worked, I think Shazam is one of the rare examples over the past 10 years of a DC movie that has been good and fun and entertaining. And that's what DC has been missing. Fun and entertaining. There has been. So I'm excited. Absolutely. I can't wait to see it, man.
I can't either. It should be a great time. Can't wait to watch it and talk with you about it. Hey, thank you to everyone who's been watching live. Thank you to all of you that are listening on the podcast. Caleb and I only get to do this because you guys all show up and enjoy this with us. So we are very appreciative to you. And so until next time, we'll see you on the Moonshine Jesus Show.